So welcome back to another Java programming tutorial. So in today's video, we're going to be going over classes. We're going to be talking about creating classes, creating some methods, constructor methods, all that fun stuff, creating instances and objects. And yeah, so this is going to be kind of an advanced video. If you've been following along so far, you'll definitely be able to follow along with it, but just know that now we're kind of getting into some harder aspects of Java. So if you guys don't understand this, please don't hesitate to join my Discord server, ask me some questions, leave a comment down below, because this is absolutely fundamental and you have to understand this before you can really start doing any serious programming. And that goes for kind of all languages, but Java especially, since it is an object-oriented language, we need to understand classes and how to create classes. So without further ado, let's get started. So far we've been working in this class called main. Now this is not really a true class, because this class, all it's doing for us is just running some code right away when we run the program. And that's why we have this public static void main function that automatically triggers whenever we click this little green run button. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, and you can see that I have some methods that I've added in here that we just kind of use within here earlier, okay? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to create my own class from scratch, and we're going to start coding. So to do this, we're going to go to whatever our package is. So in this case, tutorial 1 for me, and I'm going to go new and class, and I just did that by right clicking. And now I'm going to give my class a name. Now for this example, I'm going to create a dog class, and yeah, you guys can create whatever you want, but I would recommend you follow along with me since you guys are most likely new to classes. Okay, so now we have this thing and it says public class dog, and you can see we open up in a new file. So whenever we create a new class in Java, we have to actually create a new file for that. Now it's actually good because it makes it really easy to navigate between different classes, whereas in something like Python, you can just have all your classes in one file. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we have this public class dog. So what does this mean? Like, what is a class? Well, a class is pretty much a data type, and whenever we create an instance of a class, so like an object of a certain type, all we're doing is we're just using all the information within the class to like create an object. So you can almost think of it as like a blueprint for an object. Now, what problems do classes solve for us? Like, why are they useful? So I'm going to introduce kind of a very simple problem, all right? So I want to create 5 dogs. Okay, I want to have 5 dogs. I want each dog to have a name. I want each dog to have an age. And I want to, at some point, be able to like call something and print out each dog's name and age in like a nice form. Okay, now we could do that. We know how to do that. If we went back into main here, what we could do in this little, method here is we could just type a bunch of ints. We could say int like dog1. And this is equal to 4, and that's dog 1's age. We say int dog 2, and that's equal to 5. And we could go on and we could create 10 variables, 5 for the age and 5 for the names, right? And then we could go and we could print out each one each time, but that is incredibly inefficient. And what if I wanted to have like 10,000 dogs? Well, what would I do then? Well, we could use like lists to create, or lists or arrays to create names and ages, but that's just not efficient. It doesn't look as good in our actual coding. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a class, and you'll see how we can kind of accomplish this problem. So within classes, we have methods and we have attributes, okay? Now attributes are kind of like variables that hold information for us. So in this case, we want to have 2 attributes in our dog class, and these are going to be the name and the age. To create our attributes, since the first thing we typically do when we create a class is right at the top of our class, we're going to type the keyword private, and then we're going to give a data type. So in this case, we're going to say string, and then the name of our attributes, in this case, name. Okay, and this is all we have to do. We're just declaring that at some point in time, we're going to have the attribute name, and it's going to be storing some information later on in our program. Okay, we can also do private int, and in this case, I'll do age. And this is going to obviously represent the dog's age. Now, if you wanted to have some other attributes, we would again type private, and we could keep going and type a bunch of attributes. Now, what is this private keyword, and why do we have public up here and private here? Well, what this private keyword does is it ensures that this name and this age are only accessible within this class, meaning that if I tried to do something over here and I wanted to use this age and this name from this class, I wouldn't be allowed to do that, and the program would say, no, this is a private attribute, you can't access that. Why do we do that? Well, you would find out in larger programs, but we can also create public attributes as well that are accessible to the other classes. Okay, so if I wanted my things to be public, I can put public. For now, whenever we're using attributes, we're going to use private, and it's best practice to use more private things. Okay, and same goes for methods, which you'll see in a minute. Okay, So now I need to create something called a constructor method. Now this, you typically only create one of these, although you can create multiple. And what this is going to do is it is going to run automatically whenever we call this dog class. And the way we create this constructor, and we typically need one of these when we have a class, is we're going to do public, and we're just going to type the name of our class once again. So in this case, I'm going to say public dog, like this, okay? And you can see that now we're getting no errors, everything's fine. And in here, we are going to type the parameters or the information that we need to be passed in whenever we're creating a dog object. Now, in some instances, you may have nothing in here. When you create a dog object, all you need to do is just say you're creating a dog object. You don't need to give any information, and that's fine. But in our case, we want to be able to create an age and a name with our dog. So what I need to do here is I need to type string name and int age, okay? Just meaning that whenever we create a dog object, we need to give it a name and we need to give it an age. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set these values, so these attributes, equal to whatever we pass in, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to use a keyword, and the keyword is this. It's kind of hard to, if you weren't watching, you'd think I'm just like saying this is the keyword and pointing something, but this like actually typed out. And then I'm doing this.name is going to be equal to name, and this.age is going to be equal to age. So what is this keyword actually doing? Well, it is referencing the attributes of the class, okay? So when we type this, it is going to be looking up here to find all of our like private attributes. And in this case, we have an age and we have a name, all right? And that's how we reference things that are a part of the specific instance. We have this.name and this.age, okay? And I'm going to explain more and more of this as we keep going. It's hard to do it in like small steps, okay? So now that I have this constructor method created, we can go on to create one more method, and then we can actually start using this class really simply, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create another method. In this case, I'm going to type a public. I'm not going to return anything, so I'm going to use void, okay? And the name is going to be speak. And what this is going to do is it is simply going to say something or print something out to the screen. So I'm going to say system.out.println. Why did that? Okay, println. And all we're going to do is we're going to say I am, and I want to say the dog's name. So in this case, we'll say this dot name, okay? And we'll say plus, and I am, do another plus, we'll say this dot age plus years old, okay? So it's simply going to say like I am, whatever the name is, and I am however many years old. Not great grammar, but that's fine. So now, how do we actually create an instance of this, or how do we use this dog class? Well, from our main class here, which we should still have open, and you know what, we can delete all these, we don't need all that, so we'll get rid of all this stuff here. We can actually create a object, and to do that of type dog, what we're simply going to do is we're going to type dog, and we're going to give it a name. In this case, I'm going to say Tim is equal to new dog, okay? And then remember that we have to give dog some parameters, right? So, or arguments, because we have the name and we have the age. So what we need to do is we need to give it a name and an age. So in this case, I'm going to type Tim, and I'm going to type 4. And now you can see no red line. We're looking good. So our dog's name is Tim and its age is 4. Okay, so that's great. Let's run the program, make sure this is working. Everything's fine. Now, what I want to do is I want to use that speak method. So how can I use that? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type Tim, which is the name of my dog, or like the variable for it, dot speak, like this, okay? Semicolon. And let's see what happens. We get I am Tim, and excuse me, I am 4 years old. So the way that this worked, right, is we created a instance of the dog class, and the instance was named Tim, and it referenced a dog object, okay? So now when we created that instance, we said, okay, so this instance, this specific one, is going to have an age of 4 and a name of Tim. All right, so it stored that information up here in our private string and our private int. And then later on, when we decided we wanted to call this, well, it said, okay, well, give me the instance you're calling it on. So in this case, we're calling it on Tim. We're going to say, okay, so Tim, what's Tim's name? Well, its name is, well, it's Tim. Okay, so we'll say Tim. What's its age? Its age, that's 4. So we'll print 4 to the screen. Now we can obviously create multiple dog objects. So let's copy this and let's create a few more. We'll create 3 dog objects. I'm going to say this is Bill, and he is 7, and we'll say this is Bob, and he is 11, okay? Let's copy this, and, oh, I keep naming them the same thing. Let's go Bob, and let's go Bill, and then we can simply call the speak methods on them. Okay, so we'll say Bill, and we'll say Bob. All right, and just to prove something, I'm going to say tim.speak again, and we'll talk about why I do that in just a second. Okay, so let's run this. We say I am Tim, and I'm 4 years old. I am Bill, I'm 7, and go on, and you can read through them. Okay. Now notice when we call Tim again, it still retains its age and its name. When we do this, we're not actually changing, like this is not one variable. We actually now have 3 different names, right? We have Tim, we have Bill, and we have Bob, and they're specific to each of these variables that are storing that dog object, okay? So that means that we can hold like unique values for each of our different instances, and we can have like infinite amount of instances of a class, okay? All right, so that is about it. I think I'm going to talk about quickly, I already talked about private versus public. Let's create some more methods in here and see what they can do. And I'll talk about a bit more about constructors because we're only at like 11 minutes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create another method, and I'm going to call this get age. Okay, so I'm going to say public, and in this case we'll say int get age. All right, and all we're going to do in here is simply return the age to let's see, a return statement to wherever we're calling it from. So in this case, all I'm going to say is I'm going to return this dot age. Now the reason I need to do this is because say I want to get the age of one of my dogs, right? Like say I created it, I changed it around, I don't know what it is, I want the age. Well, we can't simply do something like in other languages, we'd be able to do like tim.age, right? Now you see when we do this, we get these little red lines, and it says the field dog.age is not visible. And that is because, again, it's private, so it's not letting us see it from over here in this main function. Only within this, method, only within this class can we actually reference this variable, right? So to get the age, what we can do is we can call tim.get age like that, okay? And we could print that to the screen. We say like int x equals, I'm gonna say system.out println, and oh, x is already there, great. So now if we run this, we can see that we get 4 down here, excuse me, at the bottom of the screen. Now we can actually do the same thing with like setting the age. So say we wanted to change the age at some point, maybe Tim got a year older. Well, what we would do is we have to create another method in here. In this case, we're going to make it public again. We're going to say public, and we don't need int this time because we're just going to change something. We're not going to return something. We'll say public void, and we'll say set age, okay? And then we're going to take an age because we need to know what we're going to set it to. And we'll just say this dot age equals age. So just like we've done up here, it's the exact same thing, except we're just going to do it within the method set age. So now, if I want to change the age, so let's say instead of that, we'll say set age, and we'll give it a value of 10. Then we print out, let's just say tim.speak again. What's going to happen now? Sorry guys, I'm a bit sick if I keep coughing all over the place. What I'm going to do is, oh, what's our error? Tim.setAge 10, return type of set age to int. 1 second here, sorry. Public, let's try this. Int set age, public void. I know I'm making a mistake over here. Oh, okay, that's why. I can't set equal to a variable. I have to call like tim.setAge. My bad on that, guys. We do speak. We can see now it says, I am Tim and I am 10 years old, and we've changed from the age of 4. So that's how we would go about changing these attributes later on within the class, okay? Now I want to do one last one. I want to create a private method and show you what this is, okay? So I'm going to create a private void, or actually, no, let's do int, okay? And we're just going to call this add2. It's not going to make any sense with the dog class, but it's just for an example, okay? And in here, we're going to take, actually, we won't take anything, but what we're going to return this dot age plus 2, okay? Now this is a private method, meaning that it can only be used and seen within this dog class. So say I wanted to use this add2, maybe I could do this. I could do add2 here, okay? And just do a little semicolon, and there we go. I could use add2, and that works fine. There's no issues with that, okay? And that's how you use methods within inside of the class. So like speak, I could easily, every time we initiate the dog, call the speak method as well. And to do it within the class, you don't need to do like something dot, you just call the actual name because it's really visible within here, right? Now, watch what happens if I go over here and I try to use that. So add2. So I'll say tim.add2 like this. And you can see that, again, we're getting a red line and says this is not visible. You can't use it because it's a private method, okay? So I think that's going to wrap it up for this video on classes. Hopefully you guys now understand kind of how you can create classes, how to create methods somewhat. And in the next video, we're going to go more in advance. We're going to talk about inheritance. We're going to talk about multiple constructors. And then we're just going to keep on going again, more and more advanced as we go. So as always, if you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure you leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you again in another one.